Now will we see the magic?
All right, where's Murray? Okay, who is it?
This is Jesus, kid.
Know then that it is the year 10,191.
Yes, we are bored. We're all bored now.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hello and welcome to Mary vs. the Movies with your host Mary Jones.
And Dennis Ling.
And we are back.
We're back.
Yes, after our hiatus. And we are moved to a new house, a house that actually has central air in it. So we don't have to turn off the air conditioning when we record, which is kind of nice.
That is nice.
Yeah. Our bedroom, we still have to run a window unit, but at least where we're recording right now, we don't have to do any of that, which is kind of a relief because it is very hot and sticky right now.
The rest of the house, like where our stuff is basically like that MC Escher room in Labyrinth. We have no idea where anything is.
I like to think of it as the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just boxes everywhere and all of our treasures are somewhere. I don't know. But we were able to find our recording equipment and that's all that matters. Yeah, things are hot out.
Mm-hmm.
Things are, shall we say, apocalyptic in some ways.
Why would you say that?
Well, I don't know. Maybe because a week ago the forest fires were here, and then 3 weeks before that there was nothing but forest fires, and turned the sky a weird color.
So was it 3 weeks ago that was when we got the warnings and everyone was like, "This is."
I think at this point when we're recording, because we're recording, I don't know, July 8th or something like that. I think that was a month ago now.
Okay.
So a month ago, yeah, was when the forest fire smoke from Canada first hit where we live. And yeah, it was bad. I mean, you walked outside and the eyes would sting. And
yeah, even the news cared back then.
I know. And now it's just kind of yeah, it's unhealthy today. Yeah. I don't know. Breathe inside.
Yeah, we get used to apocalypses pretty quick these days.
I gotta be honest, man. That's the problem with being a human is that you adapt to horrible things very quickly.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of how we don't keep from I don't know, doing something horrible and drastic. Yeah. So you just kind of you freak out for a few days and then all of a sudden, yeah, I guess this is normal, right?
Yeah.
And that is kind of the condition of the 21st century, isn't it? You know, as soon as I don't know, Bush v. Gore happened and it was just oh, I guess the Supreme Court's going to decide who the president is. And then you just kind of acclimate to it. And then 9/11 hits and you just kind of acclimate to it. And then the Iraq war happens and you just kind of acclimate to it. And then Katrina happens and you just kind of acclimate to it. And then,
Yeah. I, for one, welcome our giant ant overlords.
My point being, this is just kind of how things have been since, I don't know, I was old enough to drink. Yeah. My entire adulthood has been one of horrible things happening, and then we just acclimate to them. So, yeah, in the summer of 2023, when forest fires are destroying swathes of Canada and the smoke is bad enough.
According to the news.
Yeah, well, yes, you can't trust the fake news, but so as
It sure seems comedy to me.
Comedy?
Yeah, as in a comet caused it.
Oh God. I guess some things don't change. I like that you're amused by yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, so then the film that we're watching tonight is a horror film, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. That's how they classified it on Google. Although you can't trust Google nowadays because it's all been taken over by ChatGPT or any of that AI nonsense. Yeah. No, don't type anything into Google. You will get the wrong answer. Although to be fair, you would get the wrong answer even 10 years ago when I tried to go to Canada without a passport and they told me it was fine. So don't go to Google. They don't.
Just don't go to the first listing on Google.
Look, it's not my fault they lied to me. But the point is, we're watching a movie. I guess it's a horror movie. It's an apocalyptic film called Night of the Comet. And the reason I picked it is what I know of this movie. I assume there's a comet. I assume this comet is causing some sort of horrible thing to happen. But the reason I picked it is it turns the sky orange. As far as I know, that's kind of the only image.
It's Night of the Filter.
Yeah, very much so.
Night of the Orange Filter.
Yeah. So I picked this movie because I guess I had made a joke about how orange the sky was on Twitter, and somebody mentioned Night of the Comet. I went, okay, well, I guess it's a movie I need to see.
Yeah.
And
The sky was not all purple. 1999.
Oh, God, you're just pulling them out of everywhere. You know what? We can't use 1999 as our song either.
No.
Well, no,
Oh,
because
yeah, that's right.
the Prince, the Prince estate will sue us.
Yikes.
We skirt the line really, really. How should I put this? I assume that everything we do is fair use. We've gotten a couple of takedown letters.
A couple?
Well,
I don't even remember
we got the one from the Tom Petty estate.
Yeah.
And then I got a thing from Spotify saying, did you use this song? And it turns out, no, we did not use that song. But the fact that they emailed us, I was just like, oh, okay, well, I guess gotta...
We know you.
Yeah.
MVM.
Yeah. They used to be our host. What do they care? Their whole thing is... Anyway, doesn't matter. So we're watching Night of the Comet. I decided originally I wanted to do... a whole month of apocalyptic movies, like nuclear movies, and we're still going to do that at some point, especially now that Facebook has released Threads. So at some point we will be watching the British apocalyptic movie Threads. But I thought we would just start with this. Obviously there's a comet. I don't know if it's ending life on Earth or if it's turning everyone into zombies, maybe, because this might be a zombie movie. I'm ambivalent on zombie movies because there are a couple of zombie movies that are some of my favorite movies ever made. I love Night of the Living Dead. I have seen Night of the Living Dead many times. I love Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead's great. Look, is it subtle satire? No. But I do really like it. I think it's great. I love Shaun of the Dead. That again, not a subtle movie, but a lot of fun. On the other hand, I don't really have any time for like The Walking Dead. Like that just doesn't interest me.
There's a lot of it too.
Oh my God, there's so much Walking Dead. In fact, I was just listening to a couple of friends try to talk about what the timeline of all of the Walking Dead shows is, and it was just so confusing, and they didn't even know how to make any sense of it. So I'm not really into like the Walking Dead. When you get into all of the remakes and the extra sequels and stuff, I'm like, that doesn't really get me. But you get your like kind of classic zombie films. I'm into that.
See, I keep getting ads, like game ads for these mowing down zombies with machine guns things.
That's not interesting.
That feels like a kind of survivalist, like, let's just rebuild everything the way I want it so I can find a woman and live in a hut.
Yeah, it's a lot of let me kill everybody so that I can then just take whatever woman I want.
Yeah.
That's not interesting to me. Like Resident Evil. Resident Evil, right? The original video game, that's a puzzle game.
Yeah.
That's fun. I played Resident Evil.
Did you see the movie?
I never saw any of the movies.
With, what's her name?
Is that Mila Jovovich? Yeah. I never saw any of the films. Don't really have an opinion on them. It was just kind of like filler in my head. But I like the Resident Evil video games. Like obviously you're going back to like what is that, like PS1?
Yeah.
I mean, this is I'm
had
old.
That door in the middle of nothing.
Yes, the door would open. Right. Yeah.
There was another game. I think it was like Dino Crisis or Dino something. It was the
I don't know
exact
that
same
one.
thing where it had the door thing, but it was
Oh, okay.
fun.
Zombies, I'm kind of ambivalent on. There are times I really enjoy it, sometimes I don't. And as far as I know, this might be a zombie movie. I assume the zombies are caused by a comet. Now, again, that's going back to Night of the Living Dead, where it was, I think, a satellite falling out of the sky that caused the zombies, the revenants, to rise from the dead. I like that idea that something falls out of the sky causing these things to happen. That's kind of interesting that it would call back to that. And I also feel like maybe this has something to do with people hanging out in a mall, which would be cribbing from Dawn of the Dead, but I'm not sure if that's right. And I'm only basing that on like an offhand comment I heard on The Best Show a few weeks ago. And when they were making their list of the 100 worst and 100 best or 50 worst, 50 best TV movies, Sharpling made some sort of joke about Night of the Comet and the mall or something like that. But I may have be misremembering something.
Huh.
So,
you liked Zombieland.
Oh, yeah, Zombieland was fun.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, it's not like I don't like zombie things, but there's a certain type of zombie movie or zombie media, I should say, that I just don't really enjoy. And it's the whole, let's just mow down these creatures type thing. Like, that just doesn't interest me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Of the undead, you've got vampires, you got werewolves, you got zombies.
And you got your Frankensteins.
And we're just in a zombie period.
But we've been in a zombie period for way too long.
Yeah, it's a little...
I mean, it kind of goes back and forth between like your zombies and your vampires.
The thing I like about vampires is that it seems to go all over the place.
Sure.
Like, there's modern ones, there's, like you can, and because they live forever or whatever, you can kind of set it in whatever period you want. You can have cowboy vampires. Why don't they have cowboy vampires?
Wait. Isn't that movie Van Helsing like kind of cowboy vampires?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Okay, all I remember, the only thing I remember about the movie Van Helsing is I caught like the end of it once on cable at like 6 a.m. on going to work or something. And I just remember a stagecoach going down a ravine and then exploding in a ball of fire.
Nice.
Which, I mean, how does a stagecoach do that?
It's made of wood. It's flammable.
Yeah, but what is no, that's not how that works.
The shock of the fall
Yeah, that's all it
scares
needs.
the wood into flame.
Never fall down, you might explode.
If you're made of wood, of course. I'm waiting for like the perfect werewolf movie. I feel like there haven't been a lot. I mean, American Werewolf in London was great, but
I don't know. American Werewolf in London might be the perfect werewolf movie.
yeah. But
I can't think of anything better. I mean, I've seen like the original Wolfman and sequels, and I never saw Wolf with Jack Nicholson.
Oh, that's fun. Is that on the list? Is that 80s?
That's the
Or is that
90s.
90s? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, there are times where we will branch in the 90s. I don't see any reason why we can't.
I like that one.
Yeah. So maybe we'll watch Wolf at some point.
It feels more Steppenwolfy than other.
I don't know what that means.
Well, the book Steppenwolf.
See, you're a Herman Hesse guy.
Yeah.
And I've never read any Herman Hesse, except I was supposed to read Demian in high school, which is kind of funny because I went to Catholic school. But and I didn't get around to it. I just bluffed my way through that class because that's how you kind of get through life. You just bluff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I never read Steppenwolf. Does it involve wolves?
Well, no, not really.
Oh, come on! Why call it Steppenwolf if there's no wolves?
A little bit, I guess.
Do better, Herman Hesse.
It's not a werewolf thing, but it's a... Yeah.
Well, then what's the point? Anyway. So, yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this movie before we watch it because I really don't know anything about it except...
Love Triangle?
No.
Everyone dead at the end?
I bet we have like one survivor. It's a real like King Lear situation. Yeah. No, I'm sure we have like one survivor, two survivors maybe.
I'm thinking a couple.
Okay. Yeah.
That seems like an 80s thing.
Yeah, exactly.
A couple and then like a rock song at the end or something.
Right. Yeah, like the end of Cobra.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, all of the bad guys in Cobra, it was a little bit like a zombie situation. He's just mowing people down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're clanging axes together. Of course he's mowing them down. That's not normal behavior. That's brand new axes you got from Home Depot. Cling, cling, cling.
So, you want to go watch the movie?
Yeah.
All right. Have you ever heard of the Toba catastrophe?
No.
74,000 years ago, there was an eruption of the supervolcano Toba on the Isle of Sumatra. At some point around that time period, it seems to be that the human population plummeted to somewhere between 1,000 and maybe 10,000 individuals. Okay. So essentially the volcano went off and created, like a nuclear winter for 10 years. And this killed off most of the human race. And we have since been repopulated by a very, very small group of people, which is a very interesting idea because, 74,000 years ago, it's a long time ago. The Neanderthals didn't die out until, I don't know, after that, but the idea that we had to repopulate from a very tiny group of people, and we were able to do it is really incredible.
Yeah.
So when I watch the end of this film, I do have a little bit of hope. It's like you would think, wow, I mean, there's only like, I don't know, 5-6 people left on Earth. Well, you can grow from that. I know that's kind of a weird place to start, but it's not that strange if you think about it. Because what happens in this film is there is a comet that goes past the Earth, and it kills just about everybody.
Is it every 65 million years? Is that what they said?
They're basically implying that it's like...
It killed the dinosaurs, and now it's back.
The idea that a comet killed the dinosaurs was one theory at the time, though, essentially what we now think happened is that a comet hit the Earth around the Yucatan Peninsula. What is now the Yucatan Peninsula. Not that the comet just passed by. Yeah, I will say, like, as an amateur astronomer watching this, okay, let me first say, I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah.
Before I start tearing apart the science of it, which is really stupid, although not the way you think. Like, I don't care that, like, it's zombies or whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Although I'm curious about what makes a person a zombie, I guess. Is it just an infection, like from the air?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was some sort of being exposed to the comet. I guess if you like were inside when it happened, you didn't get hit.
Sorry, I'm just trying. I'm thinking of COVID rules.
Yeah. I guess it is sort of air exposure that wear a mask. Mm-hmm. Don't go out.
Don't open the door for anyone with a wrench.
Yeah, no kidding.
I do like that the zombies actually talk.
That's kind of a nice difference from most zombie pictures. But so I have a bone to pick with the idea of it's a comet doing this. Yeah, so they imply that like, oh, it's the comet that killed the dinosaurs is back. And they also bring up Halley's Comet. I think that's why they went with comets with this, because there was like the theory of the dinosaurs dying off because of the comet. That was not totally accepted in the 80s. I remember because I went to the Philadelphia Academy of Natural Sciences a lot as a child, and I was a dinosaur kid. I loved dinosaurs, and there were a lot of theories as to why did the dinosaurs all die off, and people didn't really know at the time. Now, of course, they are pretty certain that it was a comet
Drugs.
hit.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I do remember a comic, and I don't know if it was like The Far Side or whatever, but it was all these dinosaurs who were smoking. And that's
I remember that.
Yeah, yes, they used to show that at the planetarium.
Yeah,
they're kind of riffing off of what was sort of popular theory at the time. I don't know that they had heard of the Toba incident at the time. I don't think that was a theory until I think like the turn of the century, like the late 90s. But and I think the reason they went with comets was A, that, and B, this was made a couple years before Halley's Comet, and like that was a big deal that Halley's Comet was coming around again. Halley's Comet is like the most famous comet because, one, it has a very short cycle. It shows up every 76, 77, 78 years. And it is often tied to disasters.
Killed Mark Twain.
It killed Mark Twain.
Well, it birthed him, and then it killed him.
Yes, it did. Exactly. And I always do love that. In fact, there's like a weird movie. Have you ever? Was it The Adventures of Mark Twain? It was a claymation movie in the 80s of like these kids who I barely remember it, but I remember they showed it to us at like the after school like program I was at. And yeah, it's all claymation, and it's Mark Twain waiting for like the comet to come back and like take him to the stars or some crazy thing. It's a very weird movie from what I remember.
This probably inspired the Hale Bop.
Right?
You know.
Well, but the Hale Bop is totally relevant because that was the Hale Bop comet, and that's what Heaven's Gate. They all were like, well, here comes the comet. Time to die.
We're gonna.
Yeah, I mean,
gonna Mark Twain out of here.
The death of Julius Caesar, I think, happened during a Halley's Comet coming around.
Yeah, I believe they called the comet Brute, and that's why.
God, no.
You too, Comet.
Oh man. The Battle of Hastings in 1066 famously happened as Halley's Comet was in the sky because it's sewn into the Bayeux Tapestry.
Huh.
Yeah, have you ever looked at my copy of the Bayeux Tapestry?
Oh, I just put that downstairs.
I know, right? Yeah, it's the Halley's Comet's in there.
Crazy.
The word disaster derived from Latin, and it means bad star.
Huh.
And the bad star in question is a comet. It's this idea that the comet is always a portent of disaster. Well, I mean, of a bad thing. I keep using the word disaster, and it's like I'm using a term to define itself. And so to have...
Sorry, Bill Haley.
So to have a comet be the source of this disaster, I did it again. To be the source of what happens, it totally makes sense. on on that kind of level. However, here's where I have a problem with it.
Okay, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, no, don't you dare. Don't you dare. Here's why I have a problem with it. Because
Right.
as an amateur astronomer, comets aren't like meteors. Okay? Not that they aren't potentially related, because there are times where like a lot of our meteor showers are probably like a comet had gone by and whatever.
Yeah.
But a comet that can be seen in the sky, it doesn't fly overhead like a meteor shower or like
It's not a one day.
it's not a one day, one moment thing.
It's
A
like a
comet,
month.
yes, a comet hangs in the sky for a month. When you brought up Hale Bopp, and when I was, I guess I was in high school when that was in the sky, and I remember getting up at like 5 a.m. at this house that we have just moved into again. That's a whole long story. But at this house, I remember standing in the driveway with my telescope at like 5 a.m. in the middle of winter or late winter or whatever to look at the comet. In the morning, and I have a notebook with like drawings I made of where it is in the sky and everything. This is a day thing. This lasts for a while. There was a comet a year or two ago that you couldn't really see with the naked eye. They had said, this might be a really good comet. It was a total flop. But if you stood there with like a camera, you could pick it up because of the long exposure. Yeah. Comets aren't fast. What people are thinking of is like an eclipse. An eclipse is comparatively fast, and an eclipse is a weird event.
Now this one though,
Well, but no, like
pretty freaky.
we've been to a total eclipse.
Yeah.
There was one in 2017, and that's a very weird experience.
It is.
It's very strange. You're standing there, and it was like August, and it was broiling hot, and we're in Kentucky, and just, soaking wet.
But it was kind of cool when it's like the temperature did go down.
Yeah.
When it went away, that was pretty awesome.
And the stars do come out, and it's a very strange experience. It's like this hole is in the sky. It's an eerie moment when the eclipse actually happens.
Yeah.
So like where I have one quibble, and nobody cares, but
right,
I had to put it out there. I'm sorry. Stop rolling your eyes. Having said that, this movie's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
How do I put this? It's a magpie of a movie. There is a scene at the mall, like I had brought up, although it's not set entirely at a mall. This is not Dawn of the Dead.
It's almost like if you have American teenagers in a film, you have to bring up consumerism.
Yes.
In an 80s film.
Yeah. So it is set in Los Angeles. I don't know if we even brought that up in the pre-show.
No.
But I guess we had just watched a documentary called Los Angeles Plays Itself, and I guess this movie had come up in this, huh?
That Rachel recommended to us.
Yeah, that a friend of the pod and a patron, Rachel, Rachel of Rachel's Chart Chat.
Yep.
From People Are the Enemy. Anyway, see, she sent us this documentary, Los Angeles Plays Itself, and this movie does show up in that. And I guess it made a real impression on you because you kind of brought it up a few times.
So yeah, there's this neighborhood called Bunker Hill, and it was like a like this Victorian, like kind of high society, like fancy place, and they had this really cool lift. It was like a trolley that went diagonal and stuff.
Which is something that they actually reproduce. I mean, I guess that still exists, although it's on a different hill now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the 1800s, it was like this high society thing up through like World War I, and then as highways came, it became like a kind of lower income people would live there, and finally it was knocked down, and it became like the center city, like kind of boring skyscrapers that you see in this movie, and it actually showed scenes from this movie with the filter and everything. So it feels like a canon movie.
Yeah, it's weird. It does. It's not. It's like a no-name distributor that I could tell.
And I think the director wanted it to be more highfalutin, like maybe Omega Man or something.
Well, I mean, when I said that it's a magpie, there's a lot of Omega Man in this. There's a lot of Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. There's a lot of kind of classic sci-fi stuff going on in here. There's some Ray Bradbury. I think he definitely wanted it to be considered a little. Even
the opening little monologue felt very Rod Serling, but I think that the producers wanted a Valley Girl too,
which is weird.
Yeah,
yeah, and like Valley Girl's great.
Yeah.
You know, but this is a totally different thing.
Like there's a dream sequence of Samantha, the younger sister, she's like disrobing in a bathroom or something, and it just felt like they were made to make that sequence or something.
Yeah, and it's the 80s, so you're going to have those sorts of shots. This was also an extremely cheaply made film. There were almost no reshoots. Like they kind of had to get it all done in one.
Yeah.
All of these scenes of this deserted Los Angeles were done like at the crack of dawn before anybody was on the road, and they basically would just take these, you know, quick shots while people were stopped at traffic lights. So it's just like, okay, there's nobody on the street right now because they're all waiting to move. We could just take a quick shot, and this like implies that the city is empty. I admire the economy of their filmmaking, actually.
Yeah.
This film is a lot better looking than it apparently the money that was spent on it.
And it works. Like those initial shots like are great.
They really are.
Just, of just the empty streets and everything.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't start out with empty streets. Let's go back to the beginning of the film.
All right.
So it's a little bit before Christmas. It's a couple weeks. And everybody knows that the comet is going to happen. So people are throwing like comet parties. And again, that's actually, that's not crazy. I mean, you know, maybe for a comet, but like if it was an eclipse that was happening, people would be having parties because we saw that happen. So like, yeah, no, it's actually kind of, people are doing like a normal thing, you know, it's the holidays and
very Independence Day.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, so I saw this, I'm like, oh, Emmerich must have watched this before he made Independence Day, because there are all these people who are out there with like big signs, like welcome Comet. It's literally that scene in Independence Day of all the people on top of, you know, the buildings and stuff. They get vaporized. Much like the people in Independence Day.
Yeah.
We're given this like kind of quick introduction to the two different sisters. You've got the older sister, Regina, played by Mary Catherine Stewart, who we have seen in other films. She was in
The Apple.
Well, she's the star of The Apple. She was in The Last Starfighter. So I guess this is like the third time we've had her on the show.
Yeah, and she's playing video games again, so She is the last Starfighter here, surely. Actually, this is before that. I think this came out the same year.
Was it the same year?
So,
okay.
She's just that's her thing.
Yeah. And then so she's like the older sister. She's 18, they say. Of course, both of these actresses are like 30. Yeah. You know, I love when it's just like they're supposed to be teenagers in high school, and it's like, I mean, they have houses by now. I mean, come on. But yeah, so she's the older sister, Regina, and she works at a movie theater where, you know, and it's busy, and she's kind of slacking off, you know, playing video games instead of, walking through the aisles and whatever. And she is sometimes sleeps with the projectionist for like favors and whatnot. You know, it's like normal, you know, hijinks type stuff that teenagers do.
And the projection is played by Michael J. Fox's stunt double.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what he looks like. Yeah. It's weird, right? Yeah. And meanwhile, she's got a younger sister, Samantha, played by Kelly Maroney, who was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've seen her in other stuff. So they have a stepmother, Doris, who is apparently just a terrible person.
Yeah, she definitely deserves the dusting.
Oh, yeah. It's just kind of like, yeah, it's sad that like 99.9% of humanity got wiped out, but, well, it took out Doris. That's all right. Because she really just she punches out Samantha at one point for basically Samantha saying, hey, stop cheating on my dad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really bad. So, yeah, in the 80s, they didn't pull punches.
No.
Neither did Doris.
And near the actress, did you read that?
Yeah, I saw that.
Like
now this was Kelly Maroney said, actually, you know, really hit me because we're not like I really want, you know, this to look good.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the Sharon Farrell who played Doris really did punch out the Samantha. It's like, wow, okay. So yeah, as everybody's throwing their party, Samantha, I guess she stays inside.
She sleeps in a shed that apparently is steel, which is what saves her.
And Regina is in the projection booth, which is also steel, because apparently that was, I don't know, like a firewall or something for the movie theater. I don't know. It's a contrivance. Who cares? Because they were both encased in essentially like a Faraday cage.
Yeah.
They both survive when the comet goes over. So, the next morning, projectionist guy runs off because a guy, is supposed to return a movie to him and whatever. And he gets clobbered by a zombie holding a wrench. And Regina doesn't see any of this. Samantha wakes up and doesn't even seem to notice what's going on.
The zombie reminds me a little bit of Michael Jackson in werewolf mode in the Thriller video.
Well, a lot of these zombies look like that,
Yeah.
actually. They all have that kind of decaying look, which is pretty fun here. I mean, I won't call it like great makeup, but I like it. But anyway, so Regina gets outside and is just like, oh, first of all, her reaction to the sky, which is now permanently orange, it seems. Oh, we're having a bad smog day, I guess. And she doesn't say anything about the fact that everywhere on the ground there's just like clothes and shoes and red dust, and like it doesn't register at first. And I guess like my first thought was like, well, yeah, the 80s were kind of dirty, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember trash being everywhere. So like, I mean, like, I don't think I would have responded to be honest, if I saw that now, I don't think I would be all that shocked.
What I really like is that Regina figures it out.
Yeah.
And doesn't say anything until she says it to Samantha. Like she figures it out on like the ride over on the motorcycle.
Yeah, she ends up stealing a motorcycle. At this point, is it stealing? Nobody's alive.
Yeah.
It's fine. and like they actually get into that in the film later on when they go to the mall. It's just like you're not stealing anymore. But yeah, she grabs a motorcycle after dodging the zombie, the same zombie who killed the projectionist.
And this is how we find out that she has like fighting skills, like from her dad, I guess.
Yeah, Dad is doing something in Honduras, which yikes.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's some reference to the Sandinistas. I don't. Yeah. It's the 80s, so you just kind of chalk it up to, oh no. So yeah, presumably Dad's out of the picture.
Yeah.
Like everyone. But yeah, so she has like fighting skills and machine guns. And I kept thinking, like, as they're shooting these machine guns, where are they getting the magazines from?
She says Mac 10s
Yeah.
are made for like housewives.
Well, yeah, because it's a little gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a nice little handheld machine gun. It's great. I've never fired one, but it looked pretty simple actually. But yeah, so she gets on the motorcycle and rides off to find her sister and explain to the sister, hey, yeah, everybody's gone. But they hear the radio is still working, so they figure, well, somebody's still alive. So they go off to a radio station to try to find other life.
Yeah, it's not XPN or WPRB. It's a programmed radio station.
It's a completely programmed radio station. Like I know that sometimes radio stations will, they all record shows and like they'll pre-record some stuff and play it at night. I mean, like you don't have anybody sitting at WXPN at like 1 a.m, I don't think. I mean, they know they're recording to go on at 1 a.m, but nobody's actually there. Because we once ran into a DJ at a show when his show was supposed to be on. I'm just like, and it was like midnight when we ran into him, and he's just like, oh yeah. That was when I realized, oh, these shows are pre-recorded. And fair enough, because it's coming on at like 11 o'clock midnight type thing.
Yeah.
This is one of those stations that's entirely pre-recorded. It's just a reel-to-reel tape that's being broadcast out. And I remember an episode of WKRP in Cincinnati where it's like Mr. Carlson has a Christmas Carol moment where I guess he thinks he's gonna like sell off the station or something like that. I think it was Mr. Carlson, and it was just sort of like he has this vision of the future where all radio stations are basically just that. It's just a computer, playing music. And he's horrified because there's no DJ, there's no people actually like choosing the music and everything. It's like, this is, this can't be the future, because this is what radio stations were trying to turn to. And of course the irony now is, yeah, that's pretty much what a lot of radio stations just are now.
And then we have AI that's going to be...
Oh my God. Yeah. Don't even get me started. Like, cause nowadays it's just like, people don't even sometimes build their own playlists. They just let Spotify like create one for them. And like I've done that myself. I know that sounds horrible, but it's true. It's kind of sad that like the care that people used to put into making a mixtape, it's the same sort of fate has been met as the radio station. And so they run into this radio station and there's like just nobody there. That's kind of devastating for them. But this radio station looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like this is not what an actual radio station would look like on the inside. Like the only radio station I've really been in is the my college radio station. But it sure didn't look like this. This is like perfect, like just neon and like weirdly
This
sparse.
is like a Howard Jones video.
Yeah, I mean, this is like it's incredible. I saw somebody compare it to like Liquid Sky,
Yeah.
and so I guess I need to see Liquid Sky.
Yeah, it's on the list.
The look, and I'll throw some pictures up when we post the show. But yeah, the look of this radio station is great. It's if you don't follow the Twitter account Cocaine Decor, it really has like a lot of that in it. Yeah.
Also, a little bit like the photo shoot from Cobra.
Yes, definitely.
Just some 80s.
It's very dark and sparse, and there's like really cool neon lights and everything.
But there is someone from Voyager.
Well, there is another person out there. So because what happens is Samantha starts goofing around with the control panel once they realize that it's all recording, and so she just starts broadcasting out into the world. And I remember and just watching her like put all of the levels up on the soundboard. I'm just like, no, don't do it.
Oh, you mean like this?
No, stop, don't touch it. But yeah, so she does that and just starts, blaring out to the world, hey, we're here, call us. And so they get a call that hangs up immediately. Now, how does Hector show up?
Hector is there when they first get
That's
there.
right, yes.
You see him, he has a gun.
Yeah, he's
And
hiding in the radio station.
He holds, at first it seems like he's holding them hostage. He's actually trying to see their eyes to see if they're zombies.
So it's got the three of them meet at this radio station.
And Hector is the guy from Voyager.
Yeah, he's played by Robert Beltran.
Yeah.
So they meet with Hector, and he is, one of the few people who has survived.
He and a girl were in his truck.
That's right.
In the back.
Right.
Overnight.
So I guess if you
She was a hitchhiker.
Boy, that sounds healthy.
Yeah.
He's definitely not got any STDs that's going to be passed on to the rest of the human race.
No. He's a good family guy.
As we find out in the end.
Yeah.
Well, but he is a good family guy because at a certain point in this film, once they meet, they end up splitting up because he wants to go down to San Diego and find his mom, which of course they're all gone. They're all dead, and it's very sad. And when he does that, they go off to the mall. Look, let's face it. You can have whatever you want now, right?
Yeah.
So they get full on like the most opulent mid-'80s sort of look. I mean, there is so much like, fur coats, fancy dresses.
And they decide not to splurge on the music.
Oh my God, no. Every bit of music in this film is like some sort of like fake version.
Yeah.
Like so they go to the mall and the song that plays is Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Perfect choice.
Yeah.
That's definitely not Cyndi Lauper singing.
No, and it's not even Robert Hazard.
No.
Which is a great version, by the way.
That is actually a great version. You're right. It's supposed to sound like her, but it's a sound-alike.
Yeah.
All of the music in this movie, it's all stuff that sounds almost like a song you would have heard, but it's not.
The thing is, that's how I remember a lot of movies being back then.
It's either music was written specifically for the film, so that like I think the money wouldn't have cost as much, but like they didn't use a lot of pop music. I mean, there were movies that did. I mean, we brought up Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and Valley Girl, does that as well. But this was just a lot of generic music, and then all of a sudden you have Girls Just Want to Have Fun thrown in, but it's this weird sound-alike version. It really took me out of it. It's kind of like there were. I don't know, like
the music was pretty close though.
Yeah.
To the point where when you first hear it, you're like, "Oh, is that it?" And then it's like, "Well, wait a second."
It's like, "Oh, that doesn't quite sound right." And you realize, that's definitely not that version. But it sounds so much like it. It's a little off-putting in a way. But yeah, so they frolic through an abandoned mall to Girls Just Want to Have Fun and start putting on like makeup and wearing dresses. There's even a joke in it about how, there are two teenagers with nothing to do, so of course they go to the mall, right?
Yeah.
Like there's nothing subtle in this film. That's fine. And at which point they get assaulted by a group of ex-stock boys who are now marauders who are also turning into zombies.
Right.
Just because you weren't affected right away, you may still have become infected and turn into a zombie. It just takes a longer time to do so. And we find this out because through this whole time, we haven't gotten into it, but there is a subplot, which ends up becoming the plot. Yeah. There's a group of scientists who are out in the desert, and
the Duffer Brothers were taking notes.
Yes, they were. Oh my God, they really were, weren't they? So there's a group of scientists out in the desert, and they have their little compound where they have been monitoring the situation, and they're looking for survivors because they want to create a serum from the blood so that they can essentially cure anybody who's become infected. Now you think, well, okay, that's, that makes sense, right? That sounds like something scientists would do. What I like in this film, though, is pretty quickly it becomes evident that, they're also just kind of using people as not even guinea pigs. It's basically like the Matrix in a way.
I do like that Mary Woronov, who she was the evil principal in Rock and Roll High School.
Yeah.
And she comes off at first as the bad guy because they're like, we're going to bring in more people from the outside, basically to harvest for blood and stuff.
And at first you think, but they don't explain that's what they're doing. You think they're looking for survivors, just so like, hey, we can rebuild the planet, right? And so the whole time she's very negative about it, and she keeps trying to throw a wrench into what they're doing, and doesn't want to bring more people there. And you're kind of thinking like, what is her problem? Like, she lost her mind, and because she played the villain in that other movie, I was just kind of like, okay, cool, she's like kind of an evil person here. That's great. But no, she knows what's actually happening to the people that they're bringing in. But not only that, the fact is, all of these scientists have already been infected.
Yeah, because they had the vents open.
Right. So even though they were in a compound out in the desert, they still breathed in whatever dust from the comet, right? While the girls are at the mall, tied up and about to be killed by these insane ex-mall employees, the scientists and their commandos come in because they've been looking for these girls.
Actually, they were the ones that made the call.
That's right.
And I guess they talked to Samantha. Someone talked to her.
Briefly.
Yeah, and told her about this compound. But didn't really say where it was, just said it was in the desert.
Right. So, they've been trying to hunt down the girls. The girls, of course, think they're like, oh, you're going to help us and take us away to someplace safe and all that. It's like, we're just basically just going to harvest your blood.
But they keep Samantha there.
Well, they split them up.
Yeah.
And I think at first it sounds like, well, they want to take Regina, the older sister. And at first it's made it almost sound like, well, because Regina is smart, they want to take her and take her blood. And I thought at first, like, oh, wait, are these guys maybe into eugenics? What's going on here? Like, they're going to repopulate the planet, but do it in like a creepy way. Yeah. Because they start talking about how like the younger sister like has a low IQ and she's just not that smart. And then our evil scientist, who's not actually evil, she's like, she's already infected. So I'm going to just put her down.
Yeah.
And so that she gives her a shot and Samantha goes right to sleep. And you think for a good chunk of this movie, like, man, did they really just kill her off?
Yeah. And that's how it's done, J.J. Abrams, by the way.
Yeah.
You do it longer than 10 minutes.
Right. Because it's not until the end of the movie. Oh, my God. Like, I'm still mad about, oh, my God, J.J. Abrams just... Did you see where he's going to make a Hot Wheels movie?
Yeah. A gritty Hot Wheels movie. Oh, God. The dark side of Hot Wheels. I destroyed Star Trek and Star Wars. Now I'm going to do the same thing to Hot Wheels.
Well, I can't destroy him any more than I did with I'm pretty sure there are some that are still buried in my backyard in Philadelphia. I mean,
that's what they're for.
Archaeologists.
Yeah, the ants had cars. Two civilizations.
So it turns out that Dr. White had actually shot her up with sodium pentothal. Regina is at the compound and finds out that her sister is dead. Sees that there's something very weird going on because there's other survivors there. There's two little kids and people keep getting their blood harvested. And then we get to shots of the scientists and what is going on their end. And I really like how, as time goes on, and they start to, the infection is progressing. And so actually Dr. White says, in a monologue that essentially like, oh no, we're infected. We're going to die in a few hours.
And it happens pretty early. She says it affects memory. And then she can't spell memory. And then she's like, oh man, it's got me.
Yeah. And that's why she does what she does. She doesn't want to bring anybody to the compound because you go there and A, you're just basically just going to be harvested, and B, probably end up a zombie too.
Yeah, I thought her storyline was really clever.
Yeah.
I really liked how they did her story.
She pretends to kill Samantha, it turns out. And then when Hector shows up from San Diego, because he doesn't know necessarily what's happened. But so he gets back to the radio station. Regina's not there. Samantha looks dead. Dr. White starts explaining to Hector what's going on. But there's stuff that we don't see on screen, which is good. I mean, there's a certain economy of storytelling in this that I really like. There's a lack of exposition that works really well. So that when we get to the end of the film, it is a nice surprise when Samantha pops up again. So Regina tries to escape from the compound. We start to see like the other scientists, and they're trying to draw blood from people, and they're constantly drawing blood from people, and it gets to the point where like it's fun watching it because they start to lose a sense of what they're doing, and they keep forgetting like how much blood they're supposed to take and how to do what they're supposed to do, and you get the sense that like they are deteriorating. I think there's an interesting idea in here where you have these scientists and their whole thing is we're going to take this blood in order to create a serum so that we can survive, right? Now, when you phrase it like that, you go, yes, that makes sense. But in a way, how is that any different than being a zombie who wants to eat the flesh of humans? Especially like as time goes on, like their project slowly devolves into, we're just treating these as like, food sources, essentially. And I like the idea that, it sort of is questioning like, where's the line between human and flesh-eating zombie?
But what I also like is that I think in the 80s, there was just this sense that like there's some Dr. Strangelove think tank out there that knows what they're doing. They know more than we do. They've got all the scientists. They're all smart. And
the Rand Corporation knows what they're doing, sure.
And I like this movie, showing like, well, no, they're,
I mean, think of that whole trope, I assume. So like, I was thinking about this as we were watching it because, on the one hand, there's these scientists out in the desert and they know what they're doing. And so, obviously what comes to mind is like the Manhattan Project. Yeah. Right? Oppenheimer's going to come out in like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, Barbenheimer.
Yep. And, so I think there's like that is playing into it. Mm-hmm. I also had kind of a weird sense as it goes on that there's sort of an unconscious evocation of the whole idea of we're going to take your blood and use it. Like this is, you're going back into like old folklore in a way. We're using your blood to sustain our life. Right? This is playing off of really old ideas. I mean, the vampire comes to mind, obviously. Was Lady Bathory in the, I guess, late Middle Ages, early modern period? She was like this, I guess, Hungarian countess who supposedly would kill virgins and bathe in their blood.
Oh, I've heard of her.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, there's some sort of crazy tech entrepreneur who's like 45 years old, and he uses his son as a blood bank and keeps injecting himself with his son's blood so that he can stay 18 forever. It's this insane story that's all over Twitter right now, but it's the same thing. It's literally the same thing. This is Peter Thiel. This is Peter Thiel, right? This is the same thing. We're using your blood for our own gratification, our own extending our life, right?
Well, if rich guys are doing it, then they must know what they're doing.
But it's funny, like the way that this movie starts off with like it sounds scientific, and then it's also playing off of these very old like fears. It's even like it's even something that, God, I hate to bring it up, but it's the idea of the blood libel, which is this, I hate to bring it up, but it's the medieval lie that Jews were stealing children and using their blood to make matzah. Okay. So like that's where a lot of the QAnon stuff originally comes out of, the whole idea that we're harvesting children for their adrenochrome. No, I'm serious. Like it's an anti-Semitic trope. I don't think the blood story is inherently that, but they're kind of like parallel tracks that if you're not careful, and this film doesn't do that. This film absolutely doesn't do that.
Right.
But it's interesting how like it's playing off of all of these like kind of old ideas without actually talking about them. So like the idea of the comet and the disaster and like the portents in the sky and the strange cabal of people who are stealing your blood to keep it's playing off of these really ancient ideas, but in a totally modern way that like, if you're me, you kind of go, oh, I know what that is, and nobody has to actually know what that's referencing though, and it really works. It's kind of neat how you don't have to know these things for them to still work. Hector shows up at the compound to break out Regina, and it turns out Samantha is hiding in the trunk of the car because she's not actually dead because Dr. White did not kill her. And so then the rest of the film is them essentially liberating the rest of the prisoners from the camp and returning to Los Angeles because all of the scientists are now zombies.
Yeah.
And there's a great scene where Hector tricks them into getting into a van to chase after him, which he has rigged to blow up because it's doused in gasoline. So that's kind of a fun send-off for those guys.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the film starts off with these scientists are supposed to be like heroic and everything, and just the way that through the movie it's unravels completely is pretty neat.
Yeah.
Cut to sometime in the future. We have 5 survivors, Samantha, Regina, and Hector, and then the 2 little kids.
And then the real hero shows up. DMK, number 6 in Tempest.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So at the very beginning of the film, Regina is playing video games, and there's this one guy who is ahead of her. Like he's disrupting her score on the video game because she has like all of the scores.
Yeah, REG.
REG. And there's this one at number 6 who is a different guy.
Yeah.
And she's just so angry about this, and so he shows up at the end of the film. Regina and Hector are a couple. It's implied,
yeah.
And they're acting as the guardians, the aunt and uncle of the 2 little kids. They're essentially like playing at being a family, and it's very strange because they're all dressed up in nice, their Sunday best and everything. They are going to be like the carrying on civilization, and it's all very absurd because Samantha just shows up and she's just wearing like this wonderfully loud outfit, just like whatever she wants to wear. And
as I was saying, she's kind of like Tank Girl.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she's just looking at them like, they won't cross the street until the light changes. She's just like, you people are insane. Like everything you're doing is crazy. There's no civilization. Remember, we can do whatever we want. Why are you like? She at one point she's just like, Jesus, they look like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And she has a point. Like, why are you trying to like continue on a civilization that like has fallen apart? It doesn't make any sense.
It was working.
It was not working.
It was working until the comet came.
It definitely wasn't if her response was, gee, I guess the sky's a little orange today.
Yeah.
And doesn't notice the fact that there are just, clothes everywhere, right? We didn't even bring up the clothes thing. So, people got turned into dust. And you brought up that it reminded you of the Ray Bradbury story, There Will Come Soft Rains.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is a movie that evokes a lot of different sci-fi things. Like you brought up the Omega Man, it's very much Omega Man. It's the Richard Matheson story that has been made into a movie several times. But you brought up There Will Come Soft Rains, and because that's a Ray Bradbury story, basically the world after a nuclear holocaust, and you just see the shadows on the walls and stuff.
But there's also these mechanical things that are still going on.
Like the radio station.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like the traffic lights. And what I like is, at the end of the film, so once they've escaped, all of a sudden there are, in fact, soft rains that then come down and wash away all of the red dust into the sewers, all the clothes and everything. So they actually do evoke, that's the title of that story.
Yeah.
And that's
safely in the sewers. And who knows where it goes from there.
I'm sure the oceans will be fine now that they're full of the dust of at that point 5 billion people.
And who knows if it does the sea life,
Yeah, I'm not worried. I mean, when I think it's just microplastics now. Microplastics and dead coral, it's fine. We have huge dead zones, algae blooms. Whatever is happening there is essentially probably not as bad as what the oceans have actually turned out to be 40 years later.
Yeah.
So I'm not terribly worried about the oceans in this movie. We've done worse. But yeah, so as they're playing Happy Family, our mysterious video game guy shows up and almost hits them with his car. Because it hits Samantha with his car because she wanders out in the street because, as she points out, there's nobody here.
Yeah.
Who cares? But no, there is somebody out there. And there's another survivor, and he's our video game guy.
Yeah.
And so they hop into a car together and drive off.
She hops in with him, and then off they go, and the family chases.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the film.
Yeah.
I assume they're going to repopulate the Earth. And you know what? As I brought up the Toba event, they could do it. They could do it. And what's nice is they're very a multiracial group too.
Now you saw that Last Man on Earth, right?
The TV show, yeah. I saw like the first season, and it's actually kind of similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. The that first episode, like the show Last Man on Earth, that's I don't know when was that on, like 10 years ago. Starred Will Forte and oh gosh, what's her name? Kristen Shaw.
Yeah.
And it was the same sort of premise of all of a sudden there's no people and he thinks he's the last man on earth and he's driving around and then eventually finds another person, because he starts like just squatting in a mansion. Yeah, same sort of premise. And I'm sure they saw Night of the Comet.
Sure.
Because apparently like this was kind of a hit.
Yeah.
Like had a small budget and they made it back like, multifold. Yeah, it's kind of, and this looks like the kind of movie they probably played on cable a lot.
Yeah, Mary Woronov, she thought it was like oh, this is just nobody's gonna remember this movie, but there is something that just sticks with you about it. There's something. It's better made than it seems.
Yeah, I was surprised at how good it actually is. Like I think it's a movie that kind of knows what it is.
Yeah, it's not like the home run that The Lost Boys is.
No, not at all.
Like that one is like hits on all cylinders the entire film.
Yeah,
and this one has some slow spots, but
you know what? But I liked it. I
Yeah.
really liked this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun, and yeah. So that was Night of the Comet, starring Robert Beltran, Catherine Mary Stewart, Kelly Maroney, let's see, Mary Woronov, and
Jeffrey Lewis. He was the lead creep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we've seen him before. I think he's in V. Now that I think of it.
That wouldn't surprise me. But, written and directed by Tom Eberhardt.
Oh, he's not in V, but he was in X-Files.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I think I remember him.
Catherine Mary Stewart, I really like her in this. It was fun to see her again.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is kind of a nice mashup of a bunch of different sci-fi well-known stories, and I think it works really nicely.
Yeah.
All right. You can follow us on social media. We are Mary vs. Movies on Twitter. Twitter is still there. I don't know how, but it is. Mary vs. Movies on Blue Sky. Let's see. We are Mary vs. Movies on Mastodon. Mary vs. Movies at mas.to. Yeah, that's how it works on Mastodon. Mary vs. Movies on Instagram. Mary versus the Movies on Tumblr. See, that's why I have to actually spell out what we are on everything, because for some reason Tumblr just would not let me do Mary vs. Movies. So it's Mary versus the Movies on Tumblr. And let's see. I think that's it in terms of social media right now. You can...
do we have a website?
We do not... Oh, man.
Sorry.
Go stand under a comet. No, we don't have a website.
I'll wait for that hour when the comet comes.
We are on all of the major platforms. You can listen to us through Apple Podcasts, where you can rate and review us, and we would really appreciate it if you did. We are on Spotify. Stitcher is dying, so we're on Stitcher, but Stitcher's not going to be there by the end of August, so oh well. Let's see. We're on Google Play, Overcast, pretty much anywhere that you want to get a podcast, you can hear us. And otherwise, you can get our RSS feed at the Libsyn website that we have linked in our bio, and plug that into whatever your podcatcher of choice is. So now next week, we're going to do something a little different. I was thinking about apocalyptic films, and this came up, and then I realized I saw once. Now, so I'm cheating a little bit here.
Oh, boy.
We're doing a little bit of almost Dennis versus the movies.
Oh, no.
Because there is a movie that is kind of similar to this. Not quite the same.
I'm changing the soundtrack.
No, you're not. There is a movie that is kind of similar that I have seen. I only saw it once. I saw it in college. But Dennis has never seen. And it's a very well-regarded film. It also takes place in Los Angeles, and it's also about the end of the world. That movie is Miracle Mile.
Oh, I've seen that.
You have not seen it. You told me you haven't seen it.
I was lying.
Oh,
No, I haven't seen it.
exactly. Now I only saw it once, and so I don't actually remember a whole lot about the film. I remember certain things, but I saw it. It was a very long time ago. I was in college. I saw it for a class actually. So I thought to myself, okay, we're still getting back into the groove of things. We've just been doing too much stuff lately, moving and all that stuff. So I want to do a little thing. We're going to just, change up the formula for a minute, and we're going to watch Miracle Mile.
Huh.
So,
Is it apocalyptic?
oh, buddy, wait till you see
Oh no.
how apocalyptic it is. Dennis, it's one of the best apocalyptic films I've ever seen. Yeah, I know. Well, look, man, you look at the world that we're living in, right? I mean, the stupid Facebook is creating their Twitter clone and calling it Threads. Which, by the way, is a film we will cover at some point because I have not seen Threads.
Should just be called Threats.
So yeah, I think next week we will be watching Miracle Mile. So until next time,
Bitchin'.